Yo, that was fun. So that I can say distinguished policymakers, e-waste specialists, recyclers, rethinkers, reusers, welcome and thank you so much for being here, paying so much attention to the presentations, and I really want to welcome you all. Thank you so much for that introduction. I'm lucky then I don't necessarily have to do it myself, but briefly, I am a PhD candidate at the University of Cape Town, and I've been heavily involved in the sustainable recycling industries program in South Africa, which you heard a little bit more about yesterday. So, some research that I was a part of comparing urban mining and artisanal small-scale mining in sub-Saharan Africa revealed some critical insights. The study, Urban Mining versus Artisanal Small-Scale Gold Mining, demonstrates that livelihood capitals are remarkably similar between these two sectors. When I say livelihood capitals, I mean human capital, natural capital, physical capital, social capital, and financial capital, money. So the human capital component is this health and education. Natural capital, we're talking about the environment in which we're working in. The physical capital, it's more the infrastructure built around these sectors. The social capital is referring to networks, the people in the room, the connections that they make, and then the financial sector is really about income and wage. So both share incredibly strong parallels as well to vulnerability. So when it comes to shocks in any system, the vulnerabilities align, and it's very useful to understand those similarities. But there is one noticeable distinction. Informal artisanal gold mining. I'm like hoarse from all the yo's, so I'm trying to come back to that. ASGM exhibits a more significant interaction with the natural environment, placing higher demands on natural and physical capital through land, water pollution, and limited transport access. This, thank you. Got a little secret compartment. So, this context serves as a useful foundation for today's structured dialogue, which will proceed through distinct phases. We'll have presenters, rapid-fire questions, I'll explain that a little bit later, panel discussions to establish the resource system that we're working with. The session will then transition into a kind of moment of Zen, incorporating breathing exercises that envision the future, followed by a newspaper headline projection for the next decade, and then culminates in a fishbowl discussion, all of which I will explain to you when the time comes. The African context demands particular attention. The strength lies in diversity, with African nations sharing common histories, challenges, and contexts, managing decolonization, the resource curse, and governance challenges. This diversity necessitates enhanced cooperation and negotiated understanding when navigating regional strengths. We are transitioning into this age of ecological crisis, but existential crisis is not novel to the African continent. Decision-making under extreme stress and adaptation to untenable environments has been a consistent reality. The intergenerational dynamic presents then both the struggle and the strength of Africa. As the youngest continent globally, Africa represents the future of resource management. The narrative must shift for the next generation, reimagining who will address the e-waste challenge without succumbing to despair. Recognition and empowerment of difference requires a shift away from hyper-individualized and hyper-competitive natures. While the individual is still important, the hyper-focus on individualist practices must evolve. We have in the sector informality that really characterizes what a lot of people do in South Africa and, well, Africa in general. And this really necessitates a humble inquiry into what is actually needed on the ground. We must avoid the panacea trap. In Greek mythology, Panacea was the god of universal remedy, and she holds a chalice above her head with this liquid and cure all. We must try and avoid that, because you cannot solve complex issues with just enforcement or privatization. It's about institutional diversity and understanding the context in which you are in to avoid the panacea thinking. International environmental law principles can guide this transformation. Sustainable development demands balance between economic growth, environmental protection, and social well-being. Intergenerational equity ensures present actions preserve future capabilities. The public trust doctrine holds certain resources in governmental trust for their people, and the precautionary principle advocates for preventative action amid uncertainty. That was the precautionary principle. The preventative principle, lots of P's in here, addresses environmental degradation at its source. The polluter pays principle assigns cost responsibility to pollution producers. Life cycle responsibility encompasses the entire product environmental impact, and environmental responsibility establishes this duty of care to prevent harm. So lastly, we do have the most important for me is this environmental aspect, where people that are on the periphery often suffer the most and also suffer from the changes that we make if we do not consider them. So here you see a global value chain of electronics as mapped by Evans and Vermeulen. It identifies the key governance issues in the development of these products that we're dealing with today. And local solutions must emerge from a global problem. Harnessing, hopefully, these regional potentials, extended producer responsibility does try and address some of these governance issues in the industrial technical cycles from end of life through to resale, reuse, and recycling. There are further governance issues to be mapped as we start exploring the secondary resource system, and I suspect that our esteemed panelists and presenters and all the exhibitors will highlight some of these issues, as well as ways we can mitigate and build around them. True mineral circularity and product circularity demands a full life cycle consideration of the various governance issues. Within specific jurisdictions, however, the impact can be achieved through discerning importation practices, audits, and regional negotiation blocks reinforcing global EPR. And I really want to stress that regional negotiation blocks reinforcing global EPR. We need to stand together on this to have any bargaining power on the table. The fundamental question remains: who bears real responsibility? The answer lies in the people that wield the decision-making power over product design and profit generation. Corporations are granted personhood. With that comes a certain level of responsibility. And that is where the definition of producer becomes so crucial. Environmental law transcends the disciplinary boundaries and jurisdictions. Legal standing issues include the recognition of natural entity rights. This must be addressed in Africa. The challenge that lies ahead in determining responsibility and mechanisms for African nations to instill accountability. This gathering celebrates African e-waste managers, pioneers, those designing solutions for future generations. The path forward requires strategic thinking, innovative approaches, and unwavering commitment to environmental stewardship. And with that, I would love to invite those key superheroes onto the stage. We have Ala Afifi, Alan Kimambo, Uche Kelechi, Reynard Smith, and Wendy Akorfa Asazu. Please join us on stage, superheroes. Oh wait, okay. 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 So just to introduce, we see all of our panelists on stage here, all nicely huddled far away from me. But we are quite strict with time now. We've got 8 minutes per presentation, so that will be quite important to take note of. I have a little chime that will go off on my phone just to give us all an indication. And there will be one question from the floor after each presentation. I challenge you all. For that question, you must keep the question under 10 words. So ask your who, what, where, and how questions for that rapid back and forth between presentations. Otherwise, don't worry, there will be a Q&A session at the bottom, at the end of this, just before lunch. So, without further ado, I would like to hand over to Allah for his presentation.
Okay, do we have a clicker? Yeah. Great. Good morning. My name is Ala Afifi from Egypt. I'm the founder and the CEO of Bekia. This is my first time being in Tanzania, and thanks so much for the hospitality. In 2018, I started Bekia with a vision to digitalize the collections of the e-waste in Egypt. As you know, we are over 100 million people. We are a lot. So we have a pain, which is we have a lot of devices in our homes, and we are unattached with these devices. So in 2019, we started to digitalize the collection of this waste with an application. It's a super application, Bekia. So the client can monetize their e-waste, mobiles, routers, and so on, as I consider this e-waste as raw materials. It's not waste, it's a raw materials, frankly speaking. So Bekia simply is an application where people can use daily to exchange and make money from their e-waste devices. On top of that, we have a fintech feature for this in this application, which is they can we transfer their cash back over their mobile wallets or the bank accounts, and they can use this cash to make online shopping or pay their utilities. As you can see that, this is in our warehouse. So we have the rest of the team, and this is the application. This is a screenshot of the application. Simply, we work with individuals and corporate. For the individuals, the majority of our clients are women, and we are very proud of that we make an impact for the Egyptians, women in Egypt. We have around 92% of our clients are women, and we incentive them by $12 per order, and they make around 1.7 orders in a monthly basis. Yeah, for the corporate, we have like 700 corporate diversified from FMCG's banking sector and so on. So we secure their e-waste devices. We have our technician who can secure their data and also ensure that they deliver their e-waste devices in a safe hands in Bekia. Frankly speaking, one of the amazing part of this story is the experience. We have a dedicated people who are working daily for the operations, and also we have a full technology starting from requesting the orders till delivering the reports of the CO2 emissions for the corporate. So let's start from the journey to the client, selecting what he has in his home, and then input the estimated amounts of the e-waste, and then our algorithm automatically calculate the cash back for him, and then place an order. And the other side, as we are working to formalize the informal sector, we have also an application for the collectors who can collect this waste, okay? Then once they receive the order, okay, automatically they will call you to collect your waste. And then once they confirm the backup, in a second you will get your cash in your mobile wallet. And then after they drop off the collected e-waste in our warehouse, we have a technician who can fix this e-waste and repair it and sell it in a market, in Egyptian market. If we cannot fix it, we sell it to the recycling factories, and we supply them in a daily basis with the raw materials. And the amazing part is the data part. As when we started, I believe that we have a lack of data in the Egyptian market for the waste, e-waste. So we have our own engine in the back end to collect the data, carbon emissions, and so on. So we supply the corporate with a detailed report in monthly basis about their consumption, and also some insight about the market. They can use this report for their yearly SMGs reports. This, as I mentioned, this is a snapshot from our collections. One of advantage in Bekia that we are trying to involve all the stakeholders in the story, starting from the government and the informal sector. As frankly speaking, before Bekia and still now, we have informal sector that collect all types of waste in Egypt. So we are trying to formalize and include them in our ecosystem since 6 years in Egypt. So we're doing that. This guy, he was one of the informal sector, and we tried to push him to be a part of our network. So it takes a lot. Yes, it takes a lot. It takes a lot of education. Yes, it takes a lot of education, and it takes a lot of time to convince them. Not just the collectors, the client. My mom, she's unattached with her old things. So I spend a lot of time to convince her to get rid of my laptop. Okay? Yeah, it happened. Yes, it happened in many places in Egypt. So I think I can remember that in 2018 we spent like 6 months to receive the first order. 6 months. We did a lot of campaigns, offline, online, influencers, and so on, to convince them to take a space from their mobile for our application. So, and also the health unit economic. As we are not an NGO, we are a startup, and we have investors who are requesting to make a profit. So we are working daily to make a health unit economic. In Egypt, this year, I remember that there is increasing in the fuel 4 times. We are an asset light. We don't own any trucks, but we outsource the trucks and logistics from other startups. So that affected the business in a bad way, okay? But as we have as mathematics equation that can make our healthy unit economic are more healthy, this is one of the key advantages in Bekia, that we have a healthy unit economic from the collections. The technology part, as I mentioned, we moderate and manage all of the process, starting from requesting the order till delivering the waste to the warehouse and or the third partner by technology. We have our consumer application, we have our collector application, and we have a routing optimization that I worked with a team, as I'm a tech engineer, we worked with a team like 1 year to do a routing optimization to optimize the operations. As you know, we operate in Cairo, and we have like 31 million people in Cairo. So this is a big number. So it's not easy to operate in Cairo because of the traffic. So we have our own routing optimization to manage the daily basis operations and optimize it. And also we are working in an AI feature that can make a requesting order from 3 minutes to below 1 minute, which is the client can just take a picture for his waste and then will be imported in the basket. So we are working on this technology since I think 8 months. So I expect to see this feature in the Q1 next year. The fintech feature is an amazing part. We incentive the clients by their mobile wallets or the bank accounts. And it was super difficult to do that in Egypt. I think also it takes a lot of time to convince these clients and people because they have a trust issues. We collect their waste and then we transfer their cash, I think, in a second, 2 seconds, because we're integrating with one of the amazing fintech startups in Egypt. So we close the loop of the collections. Also, this is how it works. This is a collection. This is one of the collector, and this is one of the application of the collector. It's a very simple application to monitor the collections and monitor the progress of every collector, and we evaluate these people in a monthly basis, and we are trying to attract more people to the from the informal sector to join us, because this is one of the vision. We cannot work alone. We came to this market and found them since a lot of years, and this was at any country. And as I mentioned, we are trying to advance our technology this next year, okay? And also we have a plan and a vision to scale to another city to Africa. This is one of the vision. Next year, we will be in another city, our solution. And for me, this is the best part, creating more jobs. We created over 600 jobs since we started, indirect jobs for the people, and we have like 47 people, tracks on daily basis working with us. I think we have a vision to scale these numbers next year. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Very insightful. I've got the rapid fire question. Does anyone have one? We've got rapid fire in the back.
Thank you, Ala, for a very insightful presentation. So my question is, what are your perceived barriers for upscaling your operations?
Oh, this is a tricky one. As I operating in Cairo, we have daily operations, okay? So in daily basis, there's changing in the pricing, okay? Because we have an inflation. So this is the one of the key challenges that we're facing in daily basis. We solve it, some challenges, which is the mindset, the behavior, the technology, and so on. And then this year we shocked with a main barrier, which is the inflation in Egypt. That affect your operation cost and also affect hiring more people, because you cannot build the projections, right projections, but we have a good way, which is we are working now to optimize our profit to scale more. Yeah.
Thank you so much, La. You can take a seat again.
Thank you.
I will call up Alan Kimambo. Thank you so much for joining us. Our resident Tanzanian.
Bonjour. Yeah. Oh, merci beaucoup. So, yeah, my name is Alan Kimambo from Tanzania. So I'm going to present on what we are doing currently. So this journey started in 2016. When we saw a company importing waste from outside the country as a raw material to its operations in Tanzania. So I had to intervene. By that time I was working with one company. So I had to intervene and tell them, I think in Tanzania we can do it. And they gave me an opportunity to do that, 2016. And that was carton boxes, the waste paper. So since then, they have never imported waste paper from outside the country. We are supplying the material, and the more factories have already been built in Tanzania to do the same. So you see technology, but we didn't start with technology. We started a traditional business, and part of our business is traditional business, collecting waste and selling as raw material. But during having doing that, we also saw an opportunity, actually pain in the industry, where people like when they want to dispose their waste, when they want to do responsible waste management, they lack access and opportunity to do sorting and segregating and recycle it properly. You are remote in your house. You don't know what to do, where to take it. So we said, okay, fine. We can build a technology that help people sort and recycle easily. So that's number one when we are saying we are doing access. You give you access. So through the application, you can schedule e-waste pickup, car batteries pickup, as well as you can see nearby drop-off stations where you can just drive in or go and drop off your waste. But again, there is another pain in the sector, data. Everyone is speaking about data. Not only data for the e-waste and the car batteries, but the companies that are collecting garbage from your households, they're lacking proper data. You don't know how many people they're saving. You don't know how much they are losing in terms of collection. So we are now supporting these companies to collect the right data. So we are registering households as well as businesses so that we can have the right data in the sector. Not only for the garbage collection companies, but the waste pickers, the informal sector. There's also a lack of traceability and transparency, as well as fair compensation to the informal people, the waste pickers who are working in the sector. So the lot of children working in the sector, so companies are paying money. They are giving huge support for projects in Africa. They don't know what that money, where does it go? So part of the money is funding, promoting children's child labor in our cities, in our landfill, in our dump sites. But again, another pain in the sector is payment. A lot of transaction is cash transaction in the sector. And that makes it inefficient, as well as there's a less financial inclusivity, which can help people in the sector to enjoy financial instruments, different financial instruments. And this we have built and we have supported companies in the sector to be able to collect payment easily. But again, with all the data access, the final piece is about the value-added services. Can they access loans? Can they access insurance? Can they access other incentives through the data that you are collecting? As Eli said, we didn't start with technology. Here is where we started. This is our baby. This is what we are doing. But again, from there, we scaled it to paper plastic. We did our first trial last year, collecting e-waste and car batteries. And we did also refurb to see if we can complete the loop. This was a pilot that we did, and it was successful the way we did it, but I'll explain what are the challenges. So in terms of the waste pickers integration, this is what we are doing. As part of our social corporate responsibility, we are supporting waste pickers. We are integrating them in our system, we are training them, and this is part of the Waste Picker Summit in Dar es Salaam. So the challenges, yes, we have the challenge on regulations. So what do you see? We have just general regulations, but some of the regulations need to go to specific issues. Like when we're talking about negative fractions, you're talking about lithium batteries, you're talking about the things that you cannot recycle easily in the country. So there have to be a regulation that specifically speaks about that. But again, another thing is EPR policy. EPR, in essence, EPR need to solve these challenges, mostly the low fractions waste materials. So again, in the industry, what you see, I cannot play this video, I think. What is happening in the sector is also business as usual. These are the companies that are given license, but the way they are dismantling the car batteries or electronic waste is also unsafe. If you go to the to the backyard of these companies, it's quite challenging. We have done some survey, we have done some research. Lot need to be done on these aspects. This is one of the pilots that we did. We fitted the motorcycle with the courier box. So whenever people schedule for e-waste and car batteries, we just move and collect from the cities. So then on the issue of waste pickers, we have so far registered more than 4,000 waste pickers. And with this one, through the applications ID app, we have not only registered waste pickers in Tanzania, we have done that in Ghana, Zambia, Rwanda, we have done that in Kenya as well, and Uganda. And actually in Rwanda, in EnviroSave, in Rwanda, they are using our technology. We just the technology to Rwanda. Both the application, the EnviroSave app, as well as the inventory tracking system. So EnviroSave, they are tracking each and every e-waste that they are collecting from the households and users and other users. Again, in Tanzania, now we are reaching to 7,000 households and businesses that we are mapping, and we are planning to reach 10,000 end of this month and end of this year. And this is just 3 months since we started the mapping. So it's growing very well. And then, of course, we want also to improve the normal buyback centers, you know. They're quite challenging. Some of them they're promoting child labor, issues of illicit alcohol and also drugs. So we want to bring them into light so that anyone can just drive there and deposit their waste. So we call them the waste bank model, and this month we are going to launch one. But again, my engagement with policy review is key. NEMKI, VPO, they are here, they know me. I really push on having the best regulations, and I've gone through different countries to learn, so I'm here, just use me. We have strong partnership now with Jubilee Insurance for insurance, UNDP, and Vodacom. We are also integrating this idea up on Vodacom M-Pesa so that we can make huge impact. I call you to invest in pilots. Pilots, they're expensive. We need to invest them, make them sustainable, so that we can try new things and grow them. Of course, you need to provide incentives. But again, the EPR has to be effective and inclusive, and it has to be mandatory for low fraction waste. That has to be taken into consideration. So that's for me. I welcome you for questions. Asanteni sana. Namaste.
Rapid fire question, anybody? From my side, it looks incredible, lots of work, and I am going to pick your brain quickly myself, sorry. So what has been your experience with implementing now the mandatory potential regulations? Has it been a relatively seamless process, or is there resistance from industry?
In Tanzania, if I take the experience of the plastic ban that we have done, the carrier bags, once the government steps in and the stakeholders are engaged, the buy-in is not a big challenge. The only issue of yours is once you slow down in terms of enforcement, then the same thing reappear again. So I think it's about engaging all the stakeholders and then keep on enforcing, keep on creating awareness. That helps a lot.
Thank you so much. Now we have our next presenter, Uche. Thank you so much for joining us from Itera Technologies.
Thank you, everybody. Good morning. Machana. Hope I got that right. Well, the e-waste management is there. One thing, and that is time management. Time management is one skill that all of us are trying to actually learn. It's not easy. But well, this is, my name is Uche Chukwuapara for Itera Technology. I'm Senior Business Development Officer for Itera Technologies. Itera Technologies is Nigerian leading electronic waste management and data destruction company. So we actually help corporate organizations manage their electronic waste properly. We also do data destruction, data erasure, and data wipe as well. Well, we have been in the business for 10 years now, and actually going rapidly. It's not easy to be in the waste business, but we are moving forward gradually. Okay, yeah, I just talked about ETRA Technologies. That is my CEO, Chief Dr. Ifeanyi Oshonogo. So we have tried to help in the e-waste industry. Over 300 tons of e-waste have been managed properly by ETRA Technologies since we started our job as former recyclers here in the country of Nigeria. I've been contributing to our own quota of green and sustainable environment. You can see me wearing green all the time. Since yesterday, I'm wearing green as part of what we portray a green economy to an extent. So that's basically what we do in ETRA Technologies. Over the years, we operate in Lagos, in Lagos, Nigeria, trying to actually expand our tentacles to other states of the country and also East Africa and West Africa, as the case may be going forward. It's just a gradual process, to be honest, but it's really clearer? Okay. Can you hear me? Oh, fantastic. So our methods are quite simple. We adopt a dry process e-waste management system. We actually comply in the way of the ISO. We have 3 ISOs. So we operate in a very compliance method of our e-waste management. We have the 3 ISOs. We have 9001, which is the quality management system. We have the 14001, which is the environmental management system. We also have the 45001, which is the health and safety management system. I mean, this method, actually, this compliance method, actually take us an edge on our competitors in the e-waste industry in Nigeria. Our interactions, as reviewed, going forward, our interactions are reviewed back in the years that over 80% of e-waste in Nigeria are being handled by the informal sector, and really it's an alarming situation, to be honest. But that's why we are here to actually make sure that we actually close the loop, to make sure that these people actually doing the right thing. We are trying to integrate this informal sector to the value chain. But the truth is, this informal sector, you can't just take them out. You actually need them in the value chain, because it's a value chain. I mean, you have the pickers or the scavengers, you can call them. You have the collectors. But the thing is just to regulate these people's property, integrate them to the value chain. Because once you collect, you send it over to the recyclers to do the property. You are not supposed to scrap and dismantle as a collector. So that's what we are trying to actually embed on them to tell them to actually do the right thing. So those are some of our cutting issues and challenges. Same thing I said before, the poor e-waste enlightenment in the country. So we're actually trying to make sure that we create more awareness. We partner with an NGO, which is called the ERF, the E-Waste Relief Foundation. So this NGO actually goes out to communities, goes to institutions, colleges, high schools, to actually discuss with them and talk to them about the improper management of e-waste and the hazardous effect of disposing of e-waste in an improper manner. So we also have the improper regulation of activities of informal sector, which I talked about before, trying to actually integrate these people into the value chain of e-waste collection. Though it's not easy, but the government too, on their own aspect, are actually trying to actually make this possible. But the truth is majorly about enforcement. So, well, the government are trying to an extent, but we actually need them to actually help us more with regards of provision of tax incentive for recyclers. Really, it's not easy. Opening a recycling facility is quite expensive, creates a whole lot. It's quite expensive. We have the high cost of the equipment. Sometimes our equipment are so the high cost of even repairing those equipment. Most of the times we don't have the repairers or the engineers who actually repair this equipment locally. I'll give you an example very quickly. a degosser, because we also have a degossing machine that actually degosses hard drives to as well. So a client of ours requested their hard drive to be degossed. As a company, it's an international company as well, because we deal with most international companies. And our degosser was bad at that point in time. So fixing that degosser, we couldn't fix it locally in the country. We have to ship that degosser abroad for fixing. It costs us nothing less than 4 million naira to actually fix that degosser. That's over $2,000, if I'm not mistaken. So that's part of the challenges we actually face. Equipment maintenance really is not easy, getting the spare parts there. And the bad roads, logistic courses, and so on and so forth. So that's why these are most of the challenges we actually face. Shipping, taking this electronic waste from point A to point B. Sometimes you see some taxation on the road, government, people on the road sometimes, but really it's not been easy. But and we also talked about the EPR. EPR has been mentioned so many times. But the EPR scheme is yet to effectively kick off in Nigeria. So it's still an impending issues for recyclers, because the truth is some companies are not actually ready to actually pay for recyclers, because we actually do business to business more, and companies are not ready to pay. Some companies really are not ready to actually pay for proper recycling. Before they actually want you to actually pay them, and the cost of setting up those factories, we actually need some incentive to actually carry out our job sometimes. So that's some challenges we're actually facing as recyclers in the country. Those are some of our call to action. So we urgently need global e-waste enlightenment campaign, as in global, just exactly what we are doing now, to actually discuss people, tell people more about the dangers of improper e-waste management. Actually, enforcement. One thing about is about setting up rules and regulations, and that thing is about enforcing some of those rules. And so that's part of a challenge. That's where the government actually comes in as well. Really, and also I didn't speak of so another challenge we also face is the cost of actually renewing some of the certificates. We have a lot of certification we should renew annually, and it actually costs millions of naira to actually renew. So support of government in developing countries like Nigeria to actually enable and create an enabling business environment to encourage recyclers to actually do the right thing. Because the truth is, we actually want to expand to other parts of the country. Though we are in Lagos, which is the heart of Nigeria, we also carry out different our job operations. We go around the country to actually deliver our services. But we're actually planning to actually have another recycling facility, the type you have in Lagos, in some strategic parts of the country. But this costs a lot of money to actually actualize such great task. So that's why we actually want support from the government and of the government to actually help and see how to actually make this thing work in the right way as the e-waste management and recycling business here in the country. Thank you very much.
Perfect, thank you. We did have like a romantic lighting come on for a few seconds there. Everything's back on. Rapid fire question, we have one over there. Do you have your headset?
Oh, well.
OK. Voilà, merci à vous. Je peux? Voilà. Merci à vous pour vos présentations. Bon, je voudrais dire que les 3 présentations auxquelles on a eu droit, de mon point de vue, sont des présentations très vivantes et très agissantes. Et sous ce rapport-là, je voudrais vraiment remercier les présentateurs, en attendant que Madame fasse sa présentation. Et je voudrais ensuite vraiment saluer votre engagement, saluer votre courage, à la limite, saluer votre obstination. Et de cette manière-là, c'est vraiment de cette manière-là que nos pays seront construits. Alors, moi, je voudrais vous demander quel est l'accompagnement, quel est l'appui dont vous avez eu à bénéficier de la part de vos États, de vos gouvernements respectifs? Est-ce que vos gouvernements, vos États vous soutiennent dans vos initiatives? C'est ça la question. Également, je voudrais attirer l'attention de l'Assemblée, car il s'agit d'un dialogue et on discute sur des questions très cruciales et on a tendance à mettre l'accent sur la gestion des e-déchets, mais il ne faut pas perdre de vue par-delà les e-déchets, la question du plomb, mais de plus en plus se pose une problématique, c'est la problématique de la gestion des déchets amiantés, de plus en plus. Et cette question-là, c'est une question qui est extrêmement sérieuse. Vraiment, je salue votre engagement, je salue votre courage et je vous félicite de la qualité de vos présentations. Merci.
Thank you so much. I just want to give a quick summary to all those in the room that weren't able to get access to the translation. It was a deep thanks for the presentations so far, and that we do require more government support. So the question is around government support. What have you seen come from the Nigerian government? And the last point to stress is that this is a dialogue. We want to communicate with one another. We want to interact with one another. And it's so fantastic that everyone's in the room, but we also need to plan the next steps, the next strategic planning steps, and I think that's a great point to stress. Thank you so much. Merci.
Yeah. All right, thank you for your question, sir. Well, the Nigerian government, like I said, I want to say the Nigerian government have not been helping us before I get arrested when I go to the airport in Lagos. Well, the truth is they have actually been supportive, but we actually need them to actually do more of the support, because in recent time they actually held a meeting some months ago, I think a month or 2 months ago. So they brought all these informal handlers together, the collectors, the waste pickers. So they brought them together in the meeting. We are in the meeting as well there. So the Nigerian government did that meeting. So we actually came in that meeting to actually speak and present the importance of doing the right thing. So the informal handlers, so the government is trying in their way to actually integrate them into the system. So that's why they keep having some seminars and some meetings to actually bring these people together, because these informal handlers are part of the challenge, the major challenge, because the truth is they take these things and where did it end up to? That is the major question. Where did it end up? So they scrap the items, take the valuables, the valuable things inside, the precious metal inside, and they just dump it anywhere. So that's the major challenge we actually face in the country. So the government in their own aspect are trying to actually integrate the informal handlers into the value chain of the e-waste properly. So that's basically what, and they actually have some other things in the pipeline as well going forward. I'm sure definitely it will come to limelight.
Thank you so much. Round of applause, everyone. We want to say thank you to Allah for joining us. He has to get to the airport, so we're going to excuse you. But please reach out to him if you would like to learn more about Bekia. The next presenter, Reynard Hart. Thank you so much. Reynard Hart, that's what I said. Reynard Smith, sorry. Welcome to the stage.
Thank you. Don't mind the picture, I'm the same person. This is a template I was told to use. I'll skip really quickly to the content. Thank you very much. I'm from Closing the Loop. And Closing the Loop is a Dutch social enterprise based in the Netherlands that tries to finance the collection of electronic waste in emerging markets. What's a Dutch person doing on the stage? I'm actually also South African. I was one of the people that didn't react when the electricity went off. Nobody moved. In Europe, everybody would go crazy. So, yeah, and so the reason I joined this company about 9 years ago because we realized there's a gap in financing collections of electronic waste in emerging markets. So what we do is we partner together with local businesses in Ghana, Nigeria, Cameroon, Uganda, and we've done this in about 5 different other African countries to collect electronic waste. And we do that with a business model that we've developed that we call 1-for-1. Very shortly, it is similar to EPR, but it is a voluntary EPR, not only for producers, but for anyone that makes sure a product is put on the market. And in our case, a lot of our customers are actually doing this for green procurement reasons. So when they buy a product, they pay us to collect another product. Dutch government as an example, we have Vodafone as a customer, we have KPMG, a bunch of banks, lots of customers like that. They pay us to collect. So what do we collect? We are currently, and I'm going to focus mostly on what we've been doing in Ghana and Nigeria, but we collect mobile phones mostly, and bottom of the value chain mobile phones. So we're not talking old iPhones, we're not talking phones that can be repaired, we're not even talking phones that can be harvested for parts, because these are the oldest and cheapest phones, often from China or other countries. And so what we try to do differently, as you can see on this photo, these are just people sorting phones. The next photo shows what happens normally in the market. Phones are broken apart, the circuit boards are harvested for smelting, and they try to get value out of it. The rest of the phone, nobody knows what happens to it. Or maybe everybody saw the pictures yesterday of the burning and everything. That's exactly what happens to the rest of the phones. So we incentivize the complete collections of phones, and how that happens, the next speaker will probably talk about more than I will. We buy from phone repairers, we buy from waste pickers, from a lot of different sources. We generally try to collect electronic devices before they end up on waste dumps, so before they end up being harvested. And we do that with the informal sector. Also, phone repairers are informal sector, the pickers are informal sector. We integrate them into the collection. Here's an example of the stuff that we collect. You can see there's no iPhone or Samsung or anything. And the iPhones we do collect actually have antennas on them, so they're clearly not real iPhones. And then we collect a lot. So we have collected about 5 or 6 million devices over the last few years. We now collect more than 2 million phones a year. And these are all being recycled properly, put into containers and shipped to Europe currently. I'll get to that later. So the financing gap, and I'll move a little bit to this side, sorry, other speakers, so you can read it. Recycling costs money. We are talking about the valuable materials in here. We're talking about like some things can bring up value, but if you do it properly and you follow all the environmental costs, it costs money, despite what's in the devices. There's actually a very big perception that mobile phones are super rich. I've put some of our economics here. We pay more than 60 euro cents per phone in Ghana. The phones that we recycle, once we get the gold, silver, copper, palladium, which isn't as much worth as it was before, from the phones, we get 25 cents back. We pay 25 cents to recycle the phone. So if you do the math, we are actually losing money on every single phone. And this is why a business model is needed in order to bridge that gap. EPR could bridge that gap, but it's a long time till we get there. The economics are simply very different in countries in Africa or other parts of the emerging world than in Europe. We've noticed that for recycling computer monitors, for example, the cost was 20 times higher in Nigeria than in the Netherlands. So if you're going to go to a producer and tell him, pay your EPR fee, and by the way, you're going to pay 20 times as much as in Europe, they're going to resist as much as they can. So we believe that the model we have, collecting big volumes, making sure they're properly recycled, that starts a flow of products, that starts a proper recycling, and that builds up capacity. And in the project we did in Nigeria, we've been able to bring the cost down to only 5 times as much as the price in Europe. So it's a small step, but it is, of course, an easier way to get producers to go as far as to paying for EPR. And we believe this is one of the steps to get there, but it is also something that might maybe coexist on the side of EPR. Again, because our customers are doing this voluntarily. So we think a real functioning EPR is still a far way away. We are really taking big steps. Yesterday were quite a few examples of countries where there are steps taken, there's money being put into funds, but that money, I believe Larry even mentioned it, that money is a small amount, and it is not yet enough to solve the problem. So we need innovative solutions. not only ours, but lots of other solutions, that gets us to the point where EPR can work. Perhaps we might even need to adjust a little bit how EPR works. Global EPR is often mentioned. That's a very complex and touchy subject, but we do believe that there is a flow of electronics through the world. And if you really focus on that flow, there is a way to put money into the system to recycle it. So we need those complementary models in order to make it work. What is key in what we're doing is that everything we do is transparent. So we do all the shipping with Basel permits, which is the reason I don't have any hair. We do the recycling correctly, and we make sure that all fractions of the products are properly recycled. And we document all of that. And that makes it transparent. And we believe one of the reasons why there's no local recycling, smelters or end processing of products in Africa, is because there is no business model and no case that shows there is enough waste. You can get access to waste, you can get it properly dismantled and sorted, and you can put it into a smelter. If you make the shipments, if you make the collection, if you make the treatment transparent, you suddenly have a business case. And that's where we are right now. Because of the work we've done over the last 9 years, we currently have enough volume and enough transparency to interest investors into building a local smelter. I might upset half the room, but it looks like we will be doing that in West Africa. So we're currently looking at Ghana or Nigeria to build a smelter. And we expect that to start the construction on that within 2 years. And question was asked earlier about the involvement of the Nigerian government. They're actually supporting this. The Nigerian government has signed a letter of intent to make this work. And this is, I think, one of the best examples that we have, that really doing collection properly, really doing documentation and shipping properly, enables investment and local infrastructure development in Africa. So that's the way we try to change it a little bit. And my call to action is embrace these models. Don't go only after the long-term policy, but embrace change makers and new ideas and innovative ideas. They might fail, but at least they'll try something new. Thank you.
Ridiculously on time.
I promised you I would, so.
Oh yeah, from my side, you're fair enough. We have a question in the back.
Thank you, Reinhard. I have a question, and I'm not an expert, but do you think increasingly complex designs of electronic products is also making it challenging to recycle these electronics? Because if that is so, then producers are not really helping at all.
Yeah, I mean, we could talk for hours about that topic. It's not making the problem worse yet in Africa, unfortunately. The biggest volume of waste at the moment is stuff that is either is a couple of generations old, or it is inferior products that are being produced. But it will become a problem. There is definitely, if you look at the newer devices that come out, they're harder to recycle, especially manually, which is a lot of the dismantling here is happening manually. I think you should talk to the actual recyclers about that part. I don't dismantle devices, but I do think producers have a responsibility to fix that as well. But that's a long-term thing. We need to do both at the same time. Definitely focus on better design, but at the same time, waste is piling up and it needs to be collected. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emma. So next we have Winnie Akofa-Asazu. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you.
Round of applause. Let's do it.
Good afternoon. My name is Winnie Akofa-Asazu. I'm from Maiden Environmental Services in Ghana, and I am a local partner for Closing the Loop. Okay, so I'm going to talk about our work, our focus, and our call to action. So what does Maiden Environmental do? Now, mobile phones have become an essential part of our lives. Everybody cannot do without mobile phones. Everyone needs mobile phones. However, you cannot imagine how many mobile phones have been left in the environment. Somewhat in Ghana, you know, in Ghana, we use a lot of phones that have been used before and have been sold to us. So that is what we use most of the time. But then now it is changing. We understand that now things are getting better, so people tend to use newer phones. So think about the times when we used to get those old phones and those phones that were left in the environment. Think about those times and how many phones would be left there and who has collected them, what has happened to those kind of phones. So we at Maiden Environmental Services, our activity is to collect scrap mobile phones. And like Reinhard said, we normally collect these feature phones, the keypad phones. And those keypad phones in Ghana, we use them mostly. So everyone has a smartphone. And then you see that somebody has a little phone, which we use for business transactions, which we call mobile money. Even our mothers in the market, they tend to use these a lot for business transactions. So you see that there are a lot of them in our country. So we collect these feature phones and then we export them. So we store them, we sort them. When I say sort, we don't do extensive sorting. We just take out the phones that comes with the batteries in them. And then we store the batteries separately, we store the phones also separately, and then we export them for recycling. So the fractions we take usually are the scrap mobile phones. They mostly come in a complete form. They are mostly intact with their screens, their keypads. Some of them come without batteries. A lot of them come without batteries. But the ones that come with batteries, we separate the batteries and then we store. So now we work mostly with the informal sector. The line of our work works mostly in the, with the informal sector. So we, in our interactions and our workings with them, we have had some key lessons that we would like to share. So first off, we have understood that when you train this informal sector on basic safety and then storage measures, it can significantly reduce the risk that's associated with this e-waste management. So we always say that we don't need you to train them to do what we are telling them to stop doing. So we are saying we don't want the informal sector to dismantle. Now you are training them on how to dismantle. So our motive is not to train them to do what we don't want them to do, but our motive is to train them on how to collect these things and then who to send them to so that the person can properly manage it and not as how they have been doing. And then we've also had another lesson that it is important to establish tracking system. Like he said before, we are very big on transparency. So we think that is a very important thing to establish a tracking system that can also foster regulations and also foster consistency and quality control. So some of the phones, like I said, because we want them intact, some of them come and then the screen is already broken or something is already broken. So that means somebody has actually altered it or done something, tried to dismantle it. So we need a tracking system that can, or something that can be able to look into this thing so then we can get the quality of waste that we need. And then also consistency. When I talk about consistency volumes, already with that, we have a system that is working. We work with agents. We work with people, who we call the agents, and we are expecting that this should also increase their livelihood. So we work with them, and then they also work with other people who go around to collect them so that everyone else also benefits from this. Not only as they are solving a problem, we want them also to have a better livelihood out of this. And then we've also had another lesson that it's important to provide good incentives, or compensations, so that when they know that they are solving a problem, they know that we are not just solving a problem, but this is also benefiting us as well. Then so we have had some challenges, some management challenges. And then one of the challenges is that there's a high expense associated with safely storing lithium batteries. When I say that, I mean the batteries just from the phones. Like I said before, we collect the batteries from the phones, not extensively, but because they come with the phones. So we just separate them and then keep them. I think that that's also one of a challenge, is a challenge in managing that. And so because of that, we do not collect as much. And then also there's a significant high shipping expense. Because we export, we think that, this is very expensive exporting. So it's a problem exporting, but we think that when these things are reduced, when these costs are reduced, I mean, we can give it to somebody who can handle it better. Why not give it to somebody that can handle better if you know you cannot? And then we've also noticed that the documents, so because we export, we use the Basel permit. And then the Basel permit takes a very long time. And it's a long process. And it's only valid for a year. Because it's valid so before we finish exporting, because it takes a long process, before you finish exporting, one permit has already expired, and you have to apply again because the validity is so short. And another challenging management practice is that we want to extend this to household. So we want everybody to be able to bring us their old phones. But then the thing is that when you tell someone, bring me your old phone, they are always saying, how much are you going to give me? So it's very difficult to identify what a good incentive is. Because when I tell you how much I'm going to give you, you tell me it's too small. But it is a damaged phone, and you don't want to keep it anymore. And I want to give you something little to bring, and you're already complaining. So we think that it is very challenging to identify what an incentive is to the public. And then also there's a varying demand for and prices for recyclable materials that impact revenue streams. Then our focus on cross-cutting issues. So we are mainly focused on empowering the informal sector. So we have, like I said before, we have been providing training, and then we've also been giving them resources so that we want to integrate them in our system. We don't want to forcefully formalize them because we think that that is very impossible. So we want to integrate them more. So we have been providing trainings to them and then also elevating their capacity on how to handle them before it comes to us finally. And then we also ensure that anything that we do in Maiden Environmental Services is compliant. So we ensure that whatever the EPA asks us to do, we are doing it and doing it properly. So we ensure that all the storage and handling process, everything is according to what our government has asked us to do, or even the international, that is what the Basel permit requires from us. So our call to action. We would want to encourage that you foster strong partnerships with the informal sector. We want you to integrate them. So like everybody talks about formalizing, because it's a difficult thing. Why not integrate them into what you do? Tell them, I would want to, so instead of you telling them that stop dismantling, employ them, get them into your business and foster partnerships with them. And then we also urge regulatory bodies to simplify the export process. Like I said before, the validity is so short. And so because it's so short, we tend to have to go through the process over and over and over and over again. And it's always a problem because sometimes it delays our exports. And like he said before, we have collected so many phones. In Ghana, last year, we collected over 1.5 million phones of those small phones. So, and then we also call on stakeholders and policymakers to support initiatives that will reduce the export costs in e-waste. Thank you very much. Any questions?
Thank you so much for the perfect timing. Any rapid fire questions? Are we all a bit hungry? There we go, rapid fire.
Can you replicate this also for lamps or monitors, and have you experience with that?
Can we? I didn't hear.
Replicate this concept or what you're doing also for lamps and monitors, and can you?
We can, but currently we collect just the mobile phones, and so, but this concept can also be replicated in other forms of waste. But then currently we just do the small mobile phones because that's our partnership with Closing the Loop. Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So we can take about 2, 3 questions. Otherwise, I will bring them back into the room and kind of, hopefully, if you have specific questions for one of the speakers, you just can then, in the second panel, direct it to the speaker, but they won't necessarily be on stage. We've got a new set of panelists, but yeah, are there any burning questions for us now?
Hi, my name is Marnik. I'm from Close the Gap. I have a question for Reinhard, maybe. You mentioned that at the Basel Convention is the reason why you no longer have any hair. Sorry about that. I have also been through the process a couple of times for partner organizations. I was wondering, do you think it would be worthwhile for organizations like yours to also play a consulting role in that and helping others, for example, following on the question from Casey here before, helping others in exporting other types of waste, for which the procedure is quite similar, although of course it requires other some other details. Is that something that you would consider, or is that something you have tried before, and what is your take on that? Thanks.
It's a very good question. I've been asked to do that in the past. I would be very much more well off if I was a consultant to do this for people. It would pay a lot more money, but no, simply we don't have the time for that. To be honest, you know, we're a small company. We are only 11 people employed by Closing the Loop. We have a lot of partners in Africa, a lot of people in the network, but the time to do these permits, yeah, that's very hard. But we do, as a company, because we're trying to improve the industry, we do try and share our knowledge as we can. We co-published a paper at the Basel Convention last year that explained the problems that we've had and also some tips on how to work on it. I think the fact that we've done this many shipments from, I think, 10 different countries in Africa with a lot of transit countries, I think that fact has already helped things getting better. The countries that we've worked with, they've done a lot more permits because of the work we've been doing, and therefore they've gotten better. We've seen that in every country we work in. We've seen the process get better, and so we hope that we contribute in that way. But if anyone has questions, not now, but if anyone has questions and wants advice, I can definitely help. Sure, in the time that I have, I'll try and assist with that. And maybe can I just add a small answer to Casey's question about other products or not?
I think that I need to be clear now.
I'll talk to you later.
No, I need to be clear. This is still a Q&A. We're open to discussion. It's not a rapid question anymore. We do want to have this discussion back and forth. But again, I know that it's lunchtime. So let's see. Please do contribute to that answer, and then we'll carry on and see who has more questions.
Sure. So Case, you asked about other products than mobile phones. In the case of doing the work, what Akofa said is definitely true. They are contracted by us to do phones, and I don't know if they even have the capacity to do other products at the moment. The model of compensation that pays for it, that does work for other products. We've tried it specifically for batteries. We've tried it for computer monitors, and we're currently looking at 2 other product streams to do that. We started with phones because it's an easier story to tell, and because it's a simpler product to recycle. So if I talk about your phone, you know what brand it is. If I talk about the monitor on your desk, you probably don't know what brand it is. So the story is less interesting. But we have noticed we can move from phones to other products, yes.
Thank you so much for that insight. Do we have any more questions? I see. I understand. And we will continue this discussion in the next session. We'll have panelists, we'll have more engagement, more interaction, and of course, our beautiful facilitator will also liven up everyone's minds before that starts.